March the 15th, water life. Various algae in the water column of ponds and lakes grow to such an extent in March due to the increase in light that blooms occur, especially of common species such as Ankistrodesmus and Cenodesmus. This causes the water to become very green, which results in a great increase in water flea numbers as they feed on the algae. The net result is the water itself becomes crystal clear again as all the algae is filtered out. In ancient Rome today was the Ides of March, the day that Caesar was predicted to die and did. It was also the day that Romans celebrated their river nymphs. In London, insect nymphs of a different kind are getting noticed more and more. Just looking into ponds this month, you are likely to see more water lice, water boatmen, mayfly larvae, caddisfly larvae, beetles, mites and snails. On the pond's surface, water skaters and springtails may also be seen. The great pond snail, Limnaea stagnalis, and the wandering pond snail, Limnaea peregra, are often near the surface. Caddisflies got their name from the caddis men, who were peddlers who carried all their wares for sale on their backs. Caddisfly larvae carry their homes or protective cases around them with them at all times. After hatching from eggs, they construct these cases from materials available around them. In London, this tends to be small pieces of woody stem and leaves, but elsewhere it can be coloured sand grains, water beetle cases, or even tiny ram's horn shells. They can often be persuaded to abandon these cases with a little gentle prodding. What emerges is a surprisingly large, caterpillar-like grub, which, given the opportunity, readily returns to its home. Any net sample taken from a pond, lake or river at this time of year is usually full of worms of all shapes and sizes. These are mainly oligochaetes, nematodes and chironomid larvae. Oligochaetes are true segmented worms which contract and extend like an earthworm and usually have bristles along their body. Smaller ones tend to be colourless and larger ones brown or red. They exist in substantial numbers in the mud which they eat, although a larger species will take other animals such as water fleas or rotifers. It is the bright red sludge worm, tubifex species, we tend to notice most and see in pet shops sold as live fish food. They can often be seen this month in stagnant pools on the surface of the mud, waving their tails to collect as much oxygen as possible. In the 1960s, when the Thames in central London was particularly malodorous, there was little else in the mud outside the House of Commons. Other common oligochaetes include Eiseniella tetraida, 30 millimeters, a square-tailed worm that looks a little like a small aquatic earthworm, Stylaria lacustris, 10 millimeters long, which has a long proboscis, long bristles, and always seems to be swimming, and various Chaetogaster species, such as Chaetogaster limnae, which is often found hiding in the entrance of snail shells. Nematodes are non-segmented worms that are usually very small, grass-like, and seen wriggling in between mud particles. Their bodies often have tapered ends, and they wriggle more like coil springs. Chironomid larvae look like worms but have heads, eyes, and mandibles, and are actually the larvae of non-biting midges. They occur in truly vast numbers in the mud, which accounts for the swarms of adults we will see later. There are over 400 species in Britain. Although they come in a range of different colours, it is the bright red larvae we call bloodworms that get noticed, due to them constantly contorting their bodies into figures of 8. From egg to adult may be just a few weeks with midges. Fortunately, they do all their eating now as a larva. Many of the adults we see and think may bite us haven't even got the mouth parts to do so. The suckers and looping motion of leeches makes them the easiest worms to recognise, and there are only 12 harmless species in London. These are easy to identify due to their different sizes, colours and markings. Most spend their time among vegetation in shallow water, waiting for prey to pass by and therefore are easily caught in nets. Among their prey are a wide variety of small invertebrates, especially water snails, worms, water lice and midge larvae. Theromyzon tessulatum is a large leech, 10 centimeters long, usually dark olive in colour, with tiny yellow spots. It prefers to feed on waterfowl, which it enters through their mouths or nasal cavities before sucking blood from their gullets. An even larger leech, the horse leech, Hemopsis sanguinsorba, 15 centimeters, which is also dark green but with a lighter coloured underside, is amphibious and quite capable of looping out of the pond to feed on earthworms. The species seen the most are smaller leeches, such as Halobdella stagnalis, 10 millimeters long, Glossophonia complanata, 30 millimeters, Heteroclite, 15 millimeters, and Erpobdella octoculata, 60 millimeters, the latter two being usually found in organically polluted waters. Halobdella stagnalis is pale green with a small dark hardened scale just behind its eyes. It prefers sluggish rivers and can withstand some degree of pollution. Glossophonia heteroclita is usually amber in colour, whereas Glossophonia complanata is darker with black lines and yellow and brown spots. Both are best looked for in sluggish rivers, on plants and understone. Glossophonia complanata rolls up rather like a pill woodlouse when caught. Erpobdella occulata is usually brown with black spots. It is more slender and more active than other species, and also very common in polluted ponds. A close relation, Erpobdella testacea, 50 millimeters, is almost transparent. Dutrichet's leech, Tracheta subviridis, 10 centimeters, is also found in water contaminated with sewage. It is a greyish-green in colour, but with a distinctly roughened surface. It was first found in London Zoo in 1850. Since then it is bred in sewers and has occasionally even been found in lavatories. Hemiclepsis marginata, 3 centimeters, and Piscicola geometra, 8 centimeters, both prefer to feed on fish and have large suckers for the purpose. Hemiclepsis is usually greenish-yellow with lemon spots, and Piscicola attractively patterned in dark green and white. The only British leech that is dangerous is the medicinal leech, Hirudo medicinalis, 15 centimeters, which was thought to be extinct in London until there was a chance rediscovery on Bochum Common in 1947. This villain is the largest and most attractive of all, being dark green with bright orange and brown longitudinal stripes. It is believed 7 million were used by doctors to treat patients in 1867 alone, so much so that doctors themselves went on to be called leeches. Poor people collected them by wading out into ponds. The leeches quickly sense their presence and swim like snakes towards them before inflicting a Y-shaped bite with their 3 jaws. The anticoagulant they include in the bite then causes the wound to bleed for some time. They were even burnt to make a hair dye that had the unfortunate side effect of blackening teeth, and were still being used to treat black eyes in the East End just over a century ago. There are other creatures that we may notice due to the way they scurry across the surface of the mud in constant motion, and always appearing to be very busy. These are ostracods, crustaceans made up of 2 shells, a little like a mussel, but only 2 or 3 millimeters long. They are often the colour of their surroundings, so the ones we see are usually brown. They have antennae and limbs only visible under a microscope, which are immediately retracted when they're disturbed. 2 or 3 pairs of limbs are used as legs, and the other pair as jaws. Like so many other water creatures, in March they will all be laying eggs.